You know what, guys? It's another reverse redaction. It's been so long, but we are doing the reverse redaction podcast once again. We've got our old friend Jared here. We've got Ford. We've got Judah Buddha. Oh, I forgot I left it as Judah Buddha. All right. Anyways, uh, and we are reverse redacting one of what has become sounds like to me as we were talking a little bit one of our favorite movies
Well,
this
Tarantino
year.
movies. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite Tarantino movies. It might be my favorite Tarantino movie.
Well,
It might be one of my favorite movies, period.
You're
Like I liked it that
all right.
much with the end. Yeah.
it was my
Okay.
favorite one this year for sure, I think. And well, anyway, so Ford, Jared, been a long time since we've been all here together reverse redacting. We've done other things together quite a bit lately, but what actually I spent my last 4 hours with you guys different times. But what how are you guys doing? It's a strange time, but we're back together. Give me a little hello.
Hey, I got to surf this morning, so I'm happy, man. Yeah, man. I got all my Ford rants out this morning. I mean, well, let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's gonna take like one statement about something.
Yeah.
Who knows what it'll be? I don't even know.
You
That's
seem
the
very
fun.
zen.
That's the fun part of it is none of us
Yeah.
ever know,
Oh, man.
and it's probably going to be something that we didn't see coming.
No, I didn't see coming either. Like if you'd have been there yesterday, you would have had a good time on the beach yesterday hearing me yell a Ford rant in the loudest Triple H voice I could muster with guttural from the surf lineup to the pier at Fisherman. And that one, if you think I'm inarticulate when I'm talking about coronavirus, man, you should have heard that one. Like it was one for the books.
That is one that I don't think I have ever gotten. Is Ford trying to project his voice over a long distance? Because normally it's just right up. I'm trying to figure out, like in my head as we go through this, like is it better or worse? I mean, I guess I don't know.
It's probably better because it's easier to laugh at because though I'm inarticulate here, I think that I have to keep my voice down to some degree. So there,
I can't even imagine the volume.
dude, they all heard me.
I'm just picturing that. Isn't there like a gif or a gopher standing on a pole yelling like, "Hey, hey, hey"? You remember that one?
Alan. Yeah, that's about it. And and whatever I said, I started thinking about it. Wait a minute, what did I say? It didn't make sense. Was that like English? Was I speaking in the tongues of angels or demons? I don't know. It was pretty incompetent, whatever it was.
Jared,
But they heard it. They heard something.
Jared has been in a good place, right? Jared, your
I've
team.
been great today. We've been watching NFL draft for 3 days straight, and it's gone well for my team. And yeah, I'm in a great mood right now.
Well, let's get. I know you hate the simultaneous sigh, Jared.
Oh God, yeah, I forgot about this.
It's
Yeah.
time for the simultaneous sigh. It's part of it's. I like to do it because it centers us and gets us together. So let us, for a minute, imbibe the sweet thing that we need so badly: the carbonated air. So let's take a deep breath on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Orgasmic.
Does feel pretty good, actually.
That's great. All right, and let's talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, this is so it's Tarantino's 8th movie, right? Or 9th? Because he's only doing 10. Oh, I should look this up.
I think he's already backtracked on that.
You think? I don't think. I think it's.
No, I think he's said that he's. I think he's already said like, maybe I didn't mean that so much.
Okay. Well, it meant a lot to people when this movie came out because it was like, oh,
The marketing ploy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. And it was a genius marketing ploy, by the way. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it turned out to be nothing what I expected.
Yeah, same.
I want to hear your guys' no spoiler impression and grade for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Start with you, Jared. You seem to be ready to go. Ford's over there meditating. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nothing like what I expected. I don't know. I'm trying to remember exactly even what I expected. I guess I sort of mistakenly expected, well, I guess I expected what it was through most of the movie. And I'll say that just to leave out spoilers, but, I kind of, as I got going through it, forgot that it was a Quentin Tarantino movie. And I would give it an A because of, well, I don't even want to spoil why I would give it an A. But yeah, there's something that kind of changes the movie, and I would give it an A. That's, I guess, about all I can say before we really get into spoilers. But
at this point, do you think the spoilers matter? I know I put a lot about the spoiler stuff, but I just second guessing myself. Do you guys think it matters? Yeah, right? It does.
For some people it does. I'm one of those people who don't care. Like, I can know what the entire movie, and for me, the movies in general are about moments and emotions and mise en scène. So I don't need these plebeian plots. No, I'm just kidding. I actually really like plot-driven movies too. Even knowing the plot, it doesn't really ruin it for me. So, but some people does. I mean, some people are there for the twist or the turn. And there are some movies that are better when you don't know it, I think.
Yeah, Sixth Sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think Sixth Sense. Well, see, I think I even knew Six. Maybe I didn't. I can't remember. That's been a long time. But yeah, as far as my no spoiler impression and grade. It's just it's the feel good Tarantino movie of a lifetime, man. I like it. I think it's I do wonder. I haven't gone back and okay, no, that's a spoiler comment. I would agree with Jared. If this were like a 5-star rating, it would be 4 or above. A- or A, depending on probably revisiting it. But generally, I think you and me, Judah, we talk about how we're very enthusiastic when we first see something, but we're fickle. And if we read something that is negative, we're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. And then it's like it's like A, D, A minus, D minus, A plus. That person was wrong.
Well,
I'm in the A. I'm with Jared. I would say
you have gone. This is interesting to me because I remember clearly when you had just seen it, you were gaga over this movie.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Right now, you're kind of like, it was good.
Right. Well, it's just been a while, and I just watched 2 David Lynch movies this week, which is like kind of like disorienting. It's like being hit by a wave and getting pinned to the bottom and coming back up. I'm like, oh, which direction is up? Oh no, this surf is gonna run over me. Why were you in my way for it? Oh, I'm sorry, man.
did you guys happen to see, just a quick side note,
Yeah.
did you happen to see the movie that I think beat out Once Upon a Time for one of those big awards, Parasite, the Korean film?
I still haven't seen it.
Okay.
I mean, it's the Kim. I'm sorry. It's Bong Joon-ho. Is that the guy that did Snowpiercer, right? Snowpiercer and
I think maybe you're right. Yeah, I saw it for the first time.
yeah. What was your take on that?
Better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
What?
Even. Yeah, like I thought, like subtitles and everything. This is not going to be well. I don't know. I would put them on right about the same level.
Maybe we should bite the bullet and reverse redact that because I avoided it because he had this like smarmy like anyway. That we could get into a form rant here. His acceptance speech. Like I don't know, but I'd be curious to watch it because. Like I was a fan when Slumdog won. Like it was a pop culture success, and there were Indians who were annoyed by it. I wonder if I might have a similar reaction to this movie, even though I'm not because I'm Korean, but just because of the cross cultural element. If I would think that it's a little too, I don't know. I'm curious to watch it though. Definitely,
you might because it has a very specific commentary.
Right,
on
anti-class, anti-capitalism.
Yes, it's right. Yeah. So
yeah, and you know my feelings about that, but
right.
yeah, I'd be curious to see how it plays out. I mean, there's some of those that still I think succeed at its goal and kind of thread the needle. And generally, as an enthusiast, I like it, even if I disagree with it. So we'll see.
And it's surprising too, in that it's very. I'm getting us too far off track too. It's actually very funny though, so it's
Right.
It's pretty enjoyable. So anyway.
It actually, I like to describe it as the only Tarantino movie that I can recommend to my Christian like parents.
Yeah.
It is such a clean movie. It has until the end, it has barely any. I don't think it has any nudity, barely any. It has a little swearing, barely any violence. We'll talk, and it's just all around pretty tame movie for the majority of the movie.
Right.
But that leads us into, and I would give it an A. Absolutely give it an A. That leads us into the next segment as we talk spoilers. So if, from this point on, you haven't seen the movie and you don't like to be spoiled, go watch something else. Because we are going to reveal a big change in what people expected going through the movie. And it was just a giant shift in tone, and as a huge revelation. So from here on, spoiler talk. So starting with you this time, Ford, give me your spoiler review. Like what?
Okay, so the things that really resonated with me the first time through was, I think, a lot of the same things that we all liked. Leo's speech to himself. A lot of people, I guess Pitt was the one that won the supporting actor, right? Oscar.
Yeah.
And I actually preferred Leo's performance. I mean, I think they're both great, but it's just that Brad Pitt didn't have to do as much necessarily. And so Leo got to show a lot of his range. And, and it was not the same Leo character that we're used to seeing, I think. I love that bit. And it was like him preaching to himself and him preaching to me. It's the kind of thing that, an artist needs to hear. Just quit passing the buck, quit blaming the man. That's a typical, Ford rant thing to do. Quit blaming the system and just do your part, quit putting off your practice. And you're drinking too much, you're playing League and Twitter too much. Like, why don't you just pick up your violin, a-hole? So that was really good, like kind of cathartic, kicking the butt. And then there's just a lot of fun. Like, he did a great job of recreating the time period. Like, I showed that was the thing my parents liked. They just felt like it's a trip down memory lane. It's a movie that breathes, it feels like an era, and a lot of these movies, when they try to do the whole period piece thing, it's like, like Stranger Things. It just feels like, I don't know, like trying too hard or just kind of pat. And this just felt very organic. Like, he did a great job of making LA look old from the very beginning of the movie. And there's a real love of film. I think I do tend to kind of get into that rut of hating the way the system works and stuff like that. And you can kind of forget just the great things that happen, even with the old studio systems. And it was just, they're a great memory. Like, just the two of them sitting down to watch FBI, like that moment. It's just like, this is such a bro moment, and they're sitting there watch this thing that everyone else across the country is watching. And the typical Tarantino ability to plant little bits that he pays off later in unexpected ways. So it really does hold up, the more I think about it. But Leo and the little girl are, like, I think maybe my favorite part.
That's a good part.
So I think that's my general consensus.
There wasn't any spoilers in that.
Oh, well, Leo and the little girl. Well, that's kind of spoilers. I mean, they're the biggest spoiler at the end. I mean, y'all can talk about that.
I'm not saying you had to. I thought it was ironic.
No, there was spoiler. I just said that Leo, like, lectures himself in the mirror about being a terrible actor.
Yeah, sure. Totally spoiled it.
I did. That was the most important scene to me. So I'd have been like, oh, I saw that coming. Oh, I don't like that anymore.
What about you, J-Rod?
Same, yeah. A lot of the stuff from the time period, having just gone back a few years ago myself through a film and digital media program as a second degree, and learning a lot about the stuff with old Hollywood and how things worked, and being able to kind of see that brought to life on screen. And kind of like we were talking and Ford was saying before, was just having time for it to breathe. And something that I noticed, I guess maybe on the first view through, but especially as I was like trying to keep my buddy invested in this, was I was like, yeah, man, there's a lot of driving scenes in this. And you go back and look, and it's just, scenes that normally you would either not have them at all. You would go from one place to another, or you would have a little clip of driving, and they basically like almost show you the entire car ride from one place to another. So it really does, when they leave all that in, it really does kind of put you in there more. Everything. Gosh, it's such a weird movie to describe in terms of, there's times where you're going through it and it just feels like you're just watching just kind of scenes from a couple of guys' lives. And are we building towards a bigger narrative arc here? Because we have these kind of characters who are largely disconnected. You've got everything's kind of set against the backdrop of the Charles Manson murders and stuff like that. But fortunately, I knew nothing about it other than I kind of knew about the Bruce Lee fight scene with Cliff. I knew that I was probably going to get something entertaining from that. But other than that, I really didn't know anything of it. And so as you're going through, like, I was enjoying different parts of it, like that scene. There's just little moments, even though, like you said, like Leo has the better overall performance. The little moments that Brad Pitt gets are just like, Tarantino just gave him such gold to work with. One of my favorite moments is just something that kind of gets lost, where they're retelling the story of how he supposedly killed his wife. And it's him sitting there on the boat as she is just laying into him. And you can see he's got this spear gun kind of pointed in her direction, and it just cuts away. And you are left to think, like, at that moment, he just probably accidentally pulled the trigger and shot her with that spear gun. But it's just little things like that
it leaves you thinking it could have. He doesn't even know if it was an accident, right? Like,
I think that's kind of the implication. A wave hits right then, and he cuts right when the wave hits. And if you're on a boat, like I tried filming recently a boat, like an interview on a boat. Oh my gosh, dude, it was killing me. It was like it was only like 2 foot seas, in Florida, and it was just like, okay, hold on for a second. You're like trying to do an actual task. So he has plausible deniability. But you're right. Like that's what I like about that scene, because it is like, did he did he half pull the trigger and then the boat did the rest? Like he was just kind of like testing it. Like, man, I could really pull it. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Exactly. You don't know. It leaves you like, was it really? And it's almost kind of like, and I think that was probably a commentary on, we've had some real life, Robert, oh gosh, what's the guy's name? There was a real life actor whose wife died in a boating accident. And I think that was sort of a commentary on, and I've forgotten the guy's last name now, but he's a pretty famous actor. So little stuff like that. But then, and then even like the fact that flashback scene exists in the first place, you've got like a 9-minute flashback scene to Brad Pitt thinking back to when he was trying to get that gig. And then there's the flashback to the boat scene within the flashback. So number one, you wouldn't have a 9-minute flashback, and then you sure as hell wouldn't have a flashback within a flashback. And then one of my favorite parts is where at the end of that, you can tell he's kind of disgruntled that he didn't get that job as the stunt guy. But as he's thinking back through it and messing up that woman's car and everything, he kind of smiles at the end, and he's like, fair enough, fair. And it was sort of like a Ford moment too, where it was kind of like this thing where he goes through all this stuff, and then it was like, oh man, I got screwed. Wait a minute, no, I was, maybe I deserved that.
Maybe I earned it.
So
Probably still worth it for all parties involved.
right, yeah.
It is worth it in the great scheme of things.
So it was little stuff like that, and then, but for me, just the ending. The ending was what, because I'm like, I was actually kind of like getting a little bit depressed towards the end. Like, man, we're just like, Kurt Russell's in narrator mode. He's giving the time, and this is just the Sharon Tate part of things, I guess, is just going to play out the way it did. And so I really had kind of gotten lulled into thinking that. And then when I get an alternate version, when things start to turn a little bit, I'm like getting a little closer, like, oh, what have we got? What have we got going on here? So, and then the ending just delivered everything I could have ever hoped for in any ending to a movie.
Yeah, I have to completely agree with you guys. The little moments, the one that sticks out in my mind as the oddest one that didn't really help me if I'm wrong about this, didn't really come together in the end, was what was that little thing with Brad Pitt going, he goes into the compound, he goes into the house, and you expect the old man to be dead, and he rolls him over and he's still alive, and they have that conversation. Like, it was beautiful. It breathed, but what was that?
You go ahead.
Well, we may be about to say the same thing. I was going to say, for me, what it did for me was, again, I was wondering, like, do we have a narrative arc that we're going towards here? Are these stories going to connect together at some point? And that was the point where I thought, oh, here we go. This is where it's going to connect together. And so when it didn't, then I was kind of like, okay, well, never mind. I guess this wasn't really going where I thought it was going. But I mean, I think it set up, it set up me in that way. And then, of course, it also tied into, them then connecting again later. But I loved it because I was, the way they shot the scene, these wide angles of him out there alone on that property where, if you know the story, that it's this, murderous cult, and like, oh, dude, is he going to get killed here? And then the exchange that he has with the girl, where it sounds like every word she's saying is just the flimsiest lie that anyone has ever delivered, of like, yeah, me and George got to watch TV, and I, slept with him, and he's asleep, and like,
you're 100%. You're thinking he's dead.
He's dead. Yeah,
he's 100% dead, and then they're going to kill Brad Pitt. And so then, but that was what it did for me was, I mean, apart from tying in the story for later, it just set me up to be like, oh, well, I guess. So when the turn came at the end, it was that much more surprising for me.
Yeah. So I think that's quintessential Quentin Tarantino, or should I say quintessential? Because he does that sort of thing, these little dogleg narratives like The Watch and Pulp Fiction, where it just seems like it's like ancillary information, and so he's just letting the feel wash all over you, and he's trying to just lull you into this sort of like expectation, subvert the expectation, but pay it off later on. And so, I mean, really, he's establishing, the whole part there is to establish the craziness of the cult. In case you forgot, this is the Manson family. They may just look like harmless hippies, but they are beyond hippie. Like, they've taken hippie to a whole new level. And I don't think you remember how gross it was. So, like, it really sets this mood, this brooding mood, so that the theatrics in the car later on, let's just kill him. Let's just kill him. That girl is so good, dude. Just performances in this, like, I didn't even recognize Elle Fanning, like the younger Fanning. Like, she's the one that sleeps with George or whatever. And she's so good. Like, just, you're like, oh man, who is this? Yeah. And like the performances in this are so great. And this is what's great about, like, you've got this ostensibly misogynist film in which the women really get to show off their acting chops. I mean, you got so much range shown here. This is what happens when you just let things be, Margot Robbie is just so great in this. Like, typically she's you know, a sexy eye candy in so many movies. I mean, where she's literally like in that what's that, the Big Short, she's literally just in a tub talking about critic default swaps or something. It's totally just like, I know you're not going to pay attention to this, so I'm going to show you a little bit of cleavage while we talk about this. I mean, and so she's so used to doing that shit. But in this movie, she's so it's just, she's great, man. Like you are rooting for her acting career. You're really not objectifying her.
Right.
You don't want her to die.
Right.
And it's such a relief when she doesn't.
And there are people could argue, oh, it's a damsel in distress scenario. You're saying women are weak, blah, blah, whatever. No, like you're saying, like this woman is like really perfecting her craft. She's kind to people that are different than her. She's not this stuck up her own a-hole Hollywood celebrity. Like
she's not Margot Robbie. Because I saw a Tonight Show or some late show interview with her, and her and Tina Fey were both on. They had done a film together, and they had shot it in New Mexico, and Margot Robbie makes a comment about like the people there not having teeth. And you can see Tina Fey just do this little like, you know, and fortunately they just moved on. But it's like Margot Robbie just, But
don't give the game away. we're all suffering together during this COVID crisis.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, she's not Margot. She's the opposite of Margot Robbie. Yeah,
that's right. But it's a good performance by her. I mean, that's what acting is supposed to be.
Fantastic actress. Yeah.
She did great. Like I love all the performances of this movie. Like Kurt Russell, the lady playing his wife. Oh man, dude. Just everything about it's just fun. Now there is one counter argument, which I haven't watched Joe Rogan's like little expression session about this.
Oh yeah, because I want to talk about this.
So I haven't
make a banner for it.
So for his critique of the Bruce Lee scene. Now, if there is a caricature in this movie, it's the Bruce Lee character, and that's just total. It's total. Pretty on the nose, hackneyed like caricature. But I liked it because I go back. I'm sorry, I didn't grow up with Bruce Lee movies. I go back and watch it with a little bit of fighting on. And Joe is like an expert fighter. You know, I'm like he actually was good in judo. He's got his insane kicks. You've seen the videos. And he's got all these MMA people around him, and he like defends Bruce Lee. But you go back and watch those Bruce Lee movies, it's like, I don't care. Like, at least Sylvester Stallone took his punches in Rocky. Like, he almost got killed by Dolph Lundgren. So I'm like, I watch a Bruce Lee movie. I'm like, this looks fake as hell. But everyone's like, oh, he's an expert. I'm like, really? He's an expert at choreography, maybe. But was he really an expert? They look cheesy, dude. It looks like a dance to me. So, but I don't know. Maybe I need to go back and watch them now that I know a little more. Like, well, so what did Rogan say? Go ahead.
This was from was it no, it wasn't Rogan that interviewed. I think I saw some of Rogan's, but I don't know if you saw Quentin Tarantino's defense for this, and it makes some sense. It's a little bit of a stretch on his defense, but he said, Cliff Booth is a made up character. He said, it's almost as if I had Dracula beat Bruce Lee, because it's a made up character. So I kind of, it's not the same. It's and
it's not realistic. I mean, it's in total Tarantino mode. It's not like there's a real Beatrix Kiddo out there in Kill Bill going through and like flying around and stuff. So, and the way that he kicks, Bruce Lee into the car is theatric. I mean, that's not even humanly possible, but like it's Tarantino. So yeah, no, I think that's not a bad defense. So what did Rogan say though? I didn't watch the video.
It wasn't that damning it was more, he was just saying like he didn't like how Bruce Lee was sort of cast as a dummy, as an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me see. The real quote is, the problem is in real life, there was no evidence that he was ever egomaniacal. He was an egomaniacal dummy. He was a very interesting guy. To me, that doesn't take away from the scene. Like, okay, so what? Maybe he wasn't a dummy, but he could have still been, an egotist. I don't know. Like it wasn't a convincing argument by Joe. It just sounded like somebody who was a huge fan of Bruce Lee saying, I didn't like that.
Right. Well, no, and I can understand that if people are only getting their information about Bruce Lee from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like I would think that would be pretty I don't know, like it'd be unfair if Tarantino were making a documentary, but it's a Tarantino movie. Like it's artistic license is Tarantino's entire way of doing things, so
yeah. And they take, if you look at anything based on a real story or including real people, they take liberties. There are often a lot of liberties taken with very real people in more of a
negative life.
made true to life story. I think the only reason that it's happening with Bruce Lee is because he's this sort of iconic, revered guy who died too early. I think it's like too many things coming together there at once.
Yeah, but it's a bonfire of all sacred cows, man. We cooked them up. I'm not so. I think, and you're right. Like people get away with this in documentaries all the time.
Yeah, right.
Where they besmirch a person's character for life, and everyone thinks it's true.
Yeah,
like King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters, about the Donkey Kong fight. Like apparently that guy is self-aggrandizing and a douchebag, Billy Mitchell, but it was not accurate at all. Like they stretched things so much to make him look like this cartoonish caricature. And in a lot of ways, Billy Mitchell's just like, yeah, whatever. Like it's fine. Like this is just better for my brand, dude. But like they cut things to make it look like he didn't talk to him and stuff like that. And wasn't true. Like he actually did talk to Steve Wiebe. And so, like I think those things are, to me, I get more frustrated when, like you said, when it's a realistic portrayal and they really like just tight, like the thing that's up right now on YouTube. I was just pulling up Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to see the cast list, and it's Ford versus Ferrari. I cannot imagine that Henry Ford IV was that stupid.
Right. Exactly. That's what I mean.
That seems a little, because that's a much more realistic documentarian portrayal. It's like, I don't know. Like that scene was cute because we've all had bad bosses. But there are certain things that Ford says that I'm like, I don't know if I buy it.
Right.
We'll save that for the reverse redaction of Ford versus Ferrari. But when I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, well, they're getting into some controversial area. But I remember particularly thinking, well, they are taking Bruce Lee down from his sacred cow, his on a pedestal level, but they're still making Booth, or what was his name?
Cliff Booth.
Cliff Booth and him, Bruce Lee, they're still making them sort of equals. Like you don't know who's going to win this fight if it goes through with it, right? Like it would have been a lot more controversial if they had made, like, say, just if Quentin Tarantino had made Bruce Lee be like really weak. Actually, he was really weak, guys, or he would have never won any fight against anybody or something like that. They kept him at a high level. They just made him arrogant and I guess a little dumb. I didn't think he made him that dumb.
Well, I think a lot was part of just his character, and again, it's a Tarantino movie, so like, yeah, maybe he twisted the knife a little too much. Later on, they show that he's training Margot Robbie's character, and so he's not really a con man. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, well, the next thing I did want to mention, to me, I grew up, for 2 years of my life, I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico in the 80s. And I've been going back. My grandparents lived there. I've been going back there all my life. I felt like if it wasn't, did you say that it was filmed or something else was filmed in Albuquerque or in New Mexico? What were you saying, Jared, about filming?
Oh, no, I don't know. Oh, no. I was talking about a different movie where Margot Robbie had filmed something in New Mexico.
Okay.
It wasn't really.
a lot of these westerns and stuff get filmed in New Mexico, and I just had the aesthetic of the movie. That's what I want to talk about, is the aesthetic of the movie. I think we've talked about it a little bit already, but I just felt like it was the setting and aesthetic of the movie was a character in itself. The whole time I just felt this warm, you used the phrase earlier, I think it was Ford, about it like washing over you. I felt, even though halfway through the film I literally looked at Joseph Rhodes, I was watching it with Joe, and said, I can't tell if I really hate this movie or really like it, because I halfway through I'm like, what is going on? I can't tell if I'm bored out of my mind, but the aesthetic of it, the setting, just lulled me into feeling comfortable, and part of it I felt at home. Like it felt like Southwest, and the '80s thing kind of gave it. There's something about Albuquerque that still hasn't caught up. It still has a lot of that old timey feel to it, and I could totally imagine California being like this. What did you guys have anything more to say about the aesthetic and the setting of the movie?
What's interesting, you mentioned like the washing over part. So what's really gotten me thinking about this more is Jack from the Perfume Nationalist, who's a diehard soap opera fan, and I've always just, soap opera to me has always been an epithet. It's like, oh, that's a soap opera. Oh, this is when a show starts going bad, like, oh, Lost turns into a soap opera. Like that was my critique of Lost, and so now I've started to see that like why Jack likes soap opera so much is this very reason, because it washes over you. And I think that's why a lot of people still like Lost. I mean, you were more of a defender of Lost to the end than I was. There's reasons to appreciate a soap opera when you actually understand the reason, like the purpose, so it's like I can do a mental shift watching Bollywood movies, and I'm like, I like it even though it's not a Hollywood movie. It has a different purpose, different goals. So synchronicity here. Jack's always talking about synchronicities. He just retweeted Bronze Age Pervert's tweet from January 23rd. The soap opera, by the way, is one of the great modern genres. And if I had the means, I would write a soap opera with my tastes. Brutal effing murder. There's a reason David Lynch uses soap style, and Camille Paglia talks so much about it. Most have lost taste for naive primal art. I think that's a great way of putting it. Like Tarantino's vision is like, it's like I don't know, maybe it's a more violent, well, Lynch is very violent too, but they have some analog in the way that they have a soap opera sort of way of doing things, where you're just marinating there for a long time. Like, what are we watching? Why are we watching this? You're just getting the rhythms of these people's lives and stuff like that. And watching 2 Lynch movies this week, thinking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah, I think there's something to that. It's not just art as consumable fast food. It's more art as like, let this thing marinate. And that's why consumption always has a big role in Tarantino movies. There's food or margarita or something. He takes time showing you the whole creation, right? And then I love that in this movie he subverts his own stuff by showing the dog food, like that. Yes. Cliff Booth's food. He's like, whatever, it's macaroni and cheese or whatever the hell he's making. But he's got that dog food. He makes dog food look appetizing. I'm like, what? I don't know. Maybe I'm just.
I thought it was great, but I just thought it was disgusting. Like it was not the least bit appetizing.
But the dog is so excited about it, and of course, and also he sets that plant for later on.
Yeah,
that's
some
found
good
it
stuff.
Disgusting, Jared. As a dog owner, don't you sometimes pour it out and think, I might
look a little good?
No, never have once done that, and especially it's not even the dry food; it's the wet food where it's that slow can shape. It stays in the shape of the can, slowly drips out and plops in there. Just absolutely,
like, man, some umami cranberry sauce, baby.
No, not for me. But it is like,
I have totally, Ford, I'm with you. I have totally thought about cutting a slice off and putting.
When I was a kid, I ate dog food at some point, so I'm experimental. I'm the experimental genius.
Yeah, it's no, it is cool. Yeah, I like it does have that feel, like it puts you there, it puts you in like I, a few years ago was in LA for a couple of days, and I stayed in Westwood, and like, so as Margot Robbie was like going out to watch her movie, I'm like, I felt like I was back there,
Right.
again with that. And yeah, it definitely has. And not only that, but then you go to a movie within a movie, where you're within the middle of Leo's movies at times, and you kind of forget. I would catch myself like forgetting, like, oh, I'm watching this other movie. Like suddenly you're invested in this story that his character is playing, even though you've had no real background set up for it. You're just all of a sudden there. But you're kind of invested in what's going on. And, Luke Perry's character comes in, and they give, like, you think about like how little Luke Perry was in there, but they're giving like depth to his character with him having like a limp, and just, it just like draws you in further. And it's like almost Inception like,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And like you said earlier about the car, him driving, the scene where we just stay with him drive. Oh man, that scene is so fun. Like, and just watching his stunt man driving through old LA.
Yeah.
Like you want to be there, man. It's just, it creates this mood that just feels effervescent, feels life affirming. Yeah. It's, the whole thing is a great ride. And yeah, you mentioning that too about the on-set life. I mean, a lot of people, everyone's talked about how it's a love letter to the movies. It makes you really realize, though, that all along, like every Tarantino movie is a love letter to the movies. Because he's homaging stuff, he's taking it, heightening everything. It's just, he's really as an American treasure. It's Americana through a violent, exploitation film lens. And, going back and watching David Lynch, it's like Americana through this, like, quixotic soap opera, quixotic soap opera descent into hell, Dante's Inferno. So yeah, both of them are just, we got good things going on in the movies, man. We shouldn't be so bitchy about it. Like, I think the great thing about I'm watching Extraction with my dad, this new Chris Hemsworth Netflix film. He wanted to watch it.
Yeah. I saw the previews for it.
Dude, I like an hour into it, I'm like, this might be up there with Born Supremacy for me. I could not believe it, man. Like, they get the Mumbai details 100% right. 100% right. And then once they get into Bangladesh, like once this chase scene starts, I was like, oh, like, okay, I got to rewind that. I don't understand. It was like Children of Men level. Like, wait. How did they? That camera move is breaking my brain. And when I watched it again, I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I know what they did. Like, they're cheating like a bajillion times in this one action sequence, but it's really seamless the first time when you're watching it. And so that's the great thing about movies, that, Tarantino can have this just languid pace, like nothing happening. My dad was saying he was trying to watch it again. He got bored. I was like, but you have to be in the mood. If you're in the mood, like, it's wonderful. If you've got a drink, kick back and relax. It's perfect, man.
The problem is, this is like 3.5 hours, though. Like,
but that's what I mean. It's a soap opera. Like, you really got to be in the zone.
It's not quite that long. It's close to 3 hours, but it is long. And
if you're not in the mood for it, if you're ADHD and like me, ever since Twitter's like, but like if you're in the right mood for it, you're mellow. Yeah. It's a good celebration movie. Yeah.
Real quick, can we just address the final part of it? What would it have been as impactful if it hadn't been so brutal? I mean, just it was brutal in a realistic way, whereas a lot of Quentin Tarantino movies are brutal. It's like spraying. It doesn't seem real. This seemed real. When he is like blow torching that.
Dude, you just have to, you laugh every time.
I have gone back and watched that scene just by itself over and over multiple times.
You just can't help but laugh.
But it has to be, right? Because if it's not, it's like the brutality of it reminds you of the real thing
Yeah.
that happened, and maybe that's what makes
Yeah.
it feel so real.
Well, that's why it's so cathartic. Yeah. Because of the real thing.
It's almost like revenge. I can't remember if I'm thinking of something different, but like revenge porn or revenge fantasy. Like people talked about how the series 24 was kind of like revenge fantasy after 9/11.
Oh, that's true. I never thought about that. Yeah, you're right.
And
it's
so this is
porn,
and so it's almost like, you know, for a lot of people who don't know the story, you know, for younger people, it's not going to resonate as much, but especially for people, it's like, that's the way you wanted it to happen. And this is the revenge fantasy, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
And,
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a pregnant woman, you know, getting brutally murdered and stuff. And so they deserve, and you want them to get, you know, for that to have gone into an alternate version of events and for that to have happened to them instead of them. So yeah, it really is sort of like a revenge thing. So I 100% think it needed to be that way. And it would have been so much less impactful if it hadn't been like the way it was with sicken the dog on him. So you've got this pit bull, you know, just mauling this guy.
Finally doing what it's programmed to do.
Doing what it's programmed to do. And then I think my favorite part, though, was when he turns and beans the other girl in the face with the dog food. Just flush.
It was brutal.
Brutal. Yeah. Brutal.
It was. It just
sound editing.
It was. And then bashing the other girl's head in there.
And of course he's like high on that acid laced cigarette. Like,
right.
He's not, he don't know what he's doing.
Right. Yeah. But you needed, you know, and going back to the Bruce Lee thing, if that scene's not in there, then it just becomes like basically like how Ford always complains about like Zahura in Star Trek. Like, how did she suddenly become this like hand-to-hand combat expert where she's taken out two guys twice her size?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been to that level, but you're just like, well, how is this guy? I mean, he's a stunt man. Does he really know martial arts? So they have to set it up with that Bruce Lee scene that this guy is so good at hand-to-hand, you know, combat that when he's on his game, he can even go toe-to-toe with Bruce Lee. So yeah, even taking an acid cigarette, he can take out a couple of idiot cult followers, you know.
Yeah, and I think what I like about this is it's a portrayal of why punitive violence still exists. And, you know, how we take everything for granted when, it's like, we all get along. Well, some people are not out to get along. Some people are out for blood of just arbitrary, like people who didn't have anything to do with anything, but, you know, they just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we're going to pick you for, you know, this act of mimetic, wrathful violence. And we're just going to stab you to death and your baby. And so, you know, in this sense, like Cliff Booth is almost like God. It's like, let me just step in there. And so this is really kind of a religious act, you know, in a sense. It's a religious play of divine wrath, and a reminder to us that you can't just pretend like that we live in this sort of fantasy land where that there, you know, that everything has been solved.
Right.
Like, and we were talking about in the podcast this morning, the surfers versus the fishermen. Like we all of a sudden now we're like ready to take a West Side Story on each other.
Yeah.
So like how to prevent that? Obviously, we don't want to go to Tarantino's level, but it is a reminder that violence is lurking beneath the surface if we don't find a way to deal with this. And it doesn't do any good just to pretend like nothing's happening. Like this Manson cult isn't out for blood.
Yeah, well, and you talk about like, and how I think that's so needed because of what the reason we were just talking about is because everything else about the film just gives you this warmth, like, oh, this would have been such a time to, you know, to a place to be in, and imagine that you lived the lifestyle of these people. This was so idealistic. Oh, don't forget though that one of the most horrific, you know, little cults was able to infiltrate this world and kill people. So it's needed, you know, for that to keep you from going all the way into that.
And you contrast that with like Leonardo DiCaprio's character. He's he's going through a transition where he's the one that should be really like angry at the Roman Polanskis, like, oh, they're coming in here taking our jobs. You know, he should be reacting with all this. And he ends up channeling that rage against himself, like for self-improvement. And then he goes to the other side of the world, takes a job that was really humiliating to him at first, but made good money, was able to come back and, adjust to some degree. And so rather he takes the self-improvement, direction as opposed to this revolutionary societal, which is something that's very appealing to young people. It's still appealing to me sometimes. I fall into this this trap with the whole, anarchist, like, the man told me what to do. It's so compelling all these years later. But so much of it is just LARP, so much. And so when you actually see what it looks like, you're like, oh, this means people are going to die, idiot. Like, are you going to pull the trigger?
Right. Yeah.
Well, we are to the last segment, the final takeaway. It's not enough for us to just reverse redact the infinite little aspects of the movie. What can we actually take from this movie and apply to our real life? What can we say? It was worth it, and this is why. And I think for me, I'll go first. I'll give you time if you guys a little chance to think about it. But what I really take away from this is Cliff Booth and what was Leonardo?
Jake Cahill.
Jake Cahill. Yeah. So they both came at the same conclusion from different avenues, but there was this theme that I really enjoyed that I want to apply to my life is being patient and waiting for things to develop. I like what you said, Ford, about letting things breathe. I think it's not only important for art, when we do art, and we do creative things, but also like that's something I want to apply to my own life. I remember the scene where he's just up on the roof, working on the antenna, and I don't know if it was meant to be symbolic, but like I just want to work on my antenna. I just want to take time, work on my antenna, and be open and observant to what is going on, and join in when the opportunity comes around, and not try to control things to make opportunities happen like the bad guys did and got their comeuppance for.
Right. I think, like letting things breathe. I like that. I think like that scene too. I'm glad you brought that up because I've been, doing work on trying to refurb this house. And I have a lot of those moments where it's very meditative, very, very contemplative. Like you hit a little, it's like, all right, time for a cigarette, or time for a drink or whatever. And you just kind of, it gives you some clarity that you don't, I think, have when you're doing other stuff. And so this movie is not misogynist. This movie is pro masculine energy channeled into a constructive direction is really what it is. And really like the Leo scene for me is just the pinnacle because it's directing that anger towards himself, not in a self-destructive way, but in a get off your ass and do what you need to do. And so that's what this is, a creative and constructive movie. Like it makes, that's what I need to do. I need to do less talk and I need to do, cause my addiction is not, what does he drink? Margaritas or whatever he makes every night.
It's a margarita.
Yeah. My addiction is not margaritas. My addiction is League of Legends and Twitter and talking, and ranting and losing my temper. And when I could just be over there in my little makeshift studio and working on my violin, working on my cinematography and making my own, movie. And I think Tarantino's just done such a great job as a filmmaker of bringing his weird vision to reality. And it's been not a cakewalk for the dude. Like he's done a lot of work. I mean, people really take for granted how hard it is to make movies. And this movie is just an ode to the filmmaking world. And it's makes me want to do it myself. So I think I need to do more of the franting at myself.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many lessons you can take away from the characters or from what Tarantino was able to do with the movie itself. I think from the movie itself, you think about what a departure like how many rules it breaks in terms of art. And now granted, most people don't have the cred of Quentin Tarantino to be able to do whatever they want. If someone else had done this, then people would have probably loved like maybe ripping on just like, oh, look how they did, this breaks the rule, blah, blah, blah. But because Quentin Tarantino does it, it's, oh, this is brilliant, so you have to factor that into it. Totally. But just the 9-minute flashback scene, the flashback within a flashback, the sudden jump cut.
Yeah. What was that one you were talking about? So he's talking to Timmy Oliphant.
Yeah, he was talking to Tim
first time when they meet. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first time when they meet, and it's right before they're talking about the movie role that he didn't get for a famous.
I remember it.
Yeah, it's for a famous movie, and it just jump cuts, and I don't think there was any. I think he just kind of put it. Maybe there was a bigger purpose behind.
Okay,
that.
No, because it's like he was saying like, no, I didn't even try out for that role, but they show the tryout and it's him blowing this accent.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, that's what
he blows the accent bad. And so he plays it off like, yeah, no, I got overlooked for that role. Because he just doesn't want to even admit that he blew that audition. It was horrible. It was supposed to be like Steve McQueen. It was a Steve McQueen. I love that. What's his name plays Steve McQueen in the movie, but it was really supposed to be Dirty Dozen or something like that.
Damian Lewis plays Steve McQueen, and I read where the Jake Cahill character was, or some people at least think it is, sort of a takeoff of Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Steve McQueen was friends with them and stuff. He was supposed to be there like that night. It's kind of another weird twist of fate in real life, like that he didn't get, offed. Of course, and then it makes you ask the question too, like if Steve McQueen had been there, would he have been able to stop them?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like actually legit question. It's like, the hairdresser guy wasn't really cut out for that. But Steve McQueen, I mean, the dude wasn't like a slouch. Like he didn't do all of his own stunts, but I mean, oh man, it's weird little things.
So that was the jump cut though, was right before that. But
Gotcha.
I'm glad you said that, because I wasn't entirely sure how to interpret that scene, if he was imagining that he would have blown it if he had gotten it. But I think
and that's true. That's a popular, I mean, that's a possible, because like you said with the other flashback with his wife, like there's kind of like a little bit of ambiguity there, and Tarantino's just having fun, man. That's what's great about it. You're right. Like normal, like if we were to do that, people are like, man, you're terrible. Like, don't you know the rules? 5 seasons of cinematography. Have you read it? It's like, yeah, but I'm an artist. Yeah. I have artistic license. You have license for shit.
Right. So that's the tough part, is your everyday person can't get away with it. But I think it does show to a certain level that you can be different with your art and create something great that way. So I think that would be kind of the takeaway from the general takeaway from the movie itself. And then, for Leo's character, even though, like I said, Brad Pitt really gets the fun stuff, in terms of like a moral lesson from it, I think it really is Leo coming to terms, and we're all either, I just turned 40 and we're close. So either we're 40 or we're all getting close to 40 there.
This summer.
So, we're kind of getting into that middle age level of life, and where you have to start thinking about, like, it's not like you're 20 or 25 or maybe even 30 again, of like, what can I realistically be? What can I realistically do? I mean, for me, having just gone back through, gone back and gotten a second degree, which was more like practical purposes of being able to kind of transition to video and the digital realm more out of journalism. But then, like, as you're going through, you're going like, oh, and then, and maybe I could just turn into this incredible screenwriter or this incredible director. But, but the thing of what Leo's, dealing with is the reality of where he is in his career. And what does he then make out of the rest of his career? Because the roles he's getting are smaller and smaller, and he's getting, more disgruntled with them. And so the emotional journey that he goes on is, the practical journey that he goes on is that he accepts the roles in Italy, because that's
Right.
what can provide money for him. But, again, the great thing about his character is that he really does put an effort into being everything he can be with that character in that Western, as opposed to, what we see out of a lot of actors who just phone it in, or what we see out of a lot of people in real life where people just give up. It's like, well,
The Witcher.
I haven't seen
Yes,
it yet. I haven't
thank
seen
you.
I haven't seen it yet, so don't spoil it. But so
Don't beat me up, Henry, whatever your name is. No, actually beat me up. That would be good for my career.
Henry
That'd be good.
Cavill.
Yeah,
Right,
there you go.
right.
It'd be good for my career. So beat me up, please.
Yeah, make it onto TMZ. Yeah, so he, even though he's disappointed by what's happening, he puts everything he's got into that one little role, which is, I think, just for a pilot, for a character, for a villain, for the heavy that's going to get killed off.
Yep.
And he gets rewarded. He gets an emotional, it's a small moment in life, but it means a lot to him because
It continues it throughout his journey, right?
Yeah, and he gets the validation from the director. He gets the validation from the little girl, who clearly you'd think, oh well, like a kid under normal circumstances. Again, this is another one of those things that Tarantino set up, because normally, if a kid had given it, a kid came up to him and said, "This is the best acting I've ever seen." What does that mean if you don't know the kid's backstory? It means a lot, because you get that scene with the little girl where you see how smart she is, how much she cares about her craft, and then that's what actually makes it mean something. So that was kind of the sort of life, the moral that I took from it. And you're right, it is the polar opposite of the Manson cult, who are just angry and they want someone to take it out on, who's not responsible for their problems in life. So,
and then there's this Hollywood ending that Tarantino gives Jake as well, that he gets invited up to Polanski's house. And there's this implication that, because he's been doing the hard work, like he didn't phone it in those other performances. He didn't phone it in that TV show. If you watched any of those TV shows from that time period,
right,
not the best acting caliber of all time. Let's be honest. Right. So the fact that, you get that Leo performance in this thing, and, and they're all like firing in that, in those scenes, like everyone's like performing really well. Yeah. So all of a sudden, the implication is like, they basically saved these people's lives. Yeah. Polanski and Tate are going to look at his filmography and be like, what the hell? Why is this guy not being used? Yeah. Right. And so, I mean, our resuscitation of his career could be the next step for him. Right. So it's beautiful. Oh, I got one question for y'all. This or Joker?
This.
100%. This.
Yeah. I like Joker.
Was all right.
I like
Joker.
I like it. But not this. This is like.
Did we reverse redact Joker?
We did. We did it on my podcast.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, that concludes our show. We do have our show, the podcast. Mark Teese, an old Tacoma Falls alum and friend, says world domination, and he gave us a thumbs up. So thank you, Mark Teese. World domination might have been, he tuned in while I was giving the takeaway, maybe what I was saying, or he's saying Tacoma is taking over the world. We're all Tacoma people.
That'll be our school reunion one day. World domination.
All right, guys, thank you so much, and I leave you with this. I think the next one we do should be Parasite.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Was that good, Jared?
It's very good. I liked it.
No, I mean, is it good for us to reverse redact?
Oh, it's a fantastic reverse redaction. Right, yeah,
I mean,
you might get I don't know, you may get irritated by the class stuff, but
I'll work it out.
It's entertaining enough that you can,
I'll go hit the punching bag. I'll learn some Korean cuss words. It'll all be good.
I leave this with you, a challenge. I challenge you guys. I don't know if you're up to it because I don't know but I challenge you guys to watch The Chosen.
Oh man.
Now what is
you're asking me a lot now, buddy.
What is it?
Jesus movie, dude. I can't watch a Jesus movie.
I challenge you guys to see The Chosen on YouTube, the Jesus show. And And I know it's tough, and I don't know if you're up to it, Ford. You might not have.
I'm not ready. It's too soon.
But I want to reverse redact the show. There is just so much to reverse redact.
It's a show or a movie?
Yeah, a show.
I mean, I've been surprised by the number of people. Granted, people within the Christian community, but I've been surprised by the caliber of people who have said that it's good.
Yeah,
people who I would never expect to like a Jesus movie.
I hate Jesus movies, and
I've never liked one.
I'm on my second time watching it and crying, just crying through it, like, and not the kind of like, but like, this is awesome. So I don't know.
Interesting. All right, we can consider that.
Consider it.
We'll start with Parasite, and we'll talk about it then.
Start with Parasite, then we'll move to the Jews.
Yeah, maybe we'll go. Maybe we'll go to some dark places before we get. Let's get some Dante's Inferno before we get to. What is the Inferno?
Beatific?
There's Inferno, and then there's the Divine Comedy. It's like Inferno, Purgatory, and then it's heaven, but that's not what it's called. It's like
Ascendance, isn't it? No,
Hevatorio.
Oh, a quick little anecdotal thing about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The guy who played the director of the Western that Leo was in is the guy who played Spider-Man in that like 70s live action show. Yeah. So I think like Tarantino cast him because he was like a fan of that show growing up. And he almost looked like Christopher Walken. He almost kind of looked like Christopher Walken to me with that hair and the sunglasses and stuff. And I was like, and I'm like, no, that's not Christopher Walken. He looked familiar, but it's the guy. I can't remember the actor's name, but it's the guy who played Spider-Man. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Paradiso. There it is. Paradiso.
Oh, man, you guys are giving all this information I need later.
It's true. You're going to use all this. All right.
All right. Love you guys. That was awesome. We'll see you on the next reverse redaction.
All right. Thanks.